The easternKicks podcast is brought to you in association with Guelo Beer. Use discount code EK10 at guelobeer.co.uk or guelobeer.com and get 10% off your order every time. Hello and welcome to the easternKicks podcast, a regular magazine programme about East Asian film led by me, Andrew Heskins, founder and grandmaster of easternKicks.com, and James Mudge, our leading writer.
Hey up.
Each episode we'll be taking a look at the latest films, news and festivals, often chatting to filmmakers and stars along the way. I have a strange feeling of deja vu. A Korean streaming series getting an awful lot of mainstream media coverage. Oh, hang on, it's not Squid Game. We are, of course, talking about Yeon Sang-ho's Hellbound,
Wow.
which is currently taking Netflix by storm. James and I will be talking about that show in a great amount of detail.
Yep.
But before we do, there is, of course, that most important question that we have every episode. What are you drinking this time, James?
I'm on the gin. I'm on the pink gin, actually. So it's got a nice sort of... what do you call artisan flavour as well. So, you know, I've gone very hipster, I think, for this episode. So,
is it really in now?
It
was in about 15 years ago, wasn't it? All the flavoured gins.
I think once Weatherspoon started saying they were gin bars, I think hipster went out the window, and they turned to something which wasn't. You know, if they want to be really hipster, they should drink something horrible like baijiu, and then they'll really prove themselves then.
In many ways.
What about yourself, man? You got some good folly?
I have. I've got, and I think I might have featured this brand before.
Okay.
It's a Bury St Edmunds brewery who are very much do their own take on Belgian beers. And this one's a real mix, actually. It's a Dubel Porter.
Oh, okay.
So mixing up the genre.
Quite dark, I guess.
Quite dark, much like what we'll be talking about today. And 8.1%.
Nice. Well, we're both comfortably on the, the stronger end of the scale today.
먼저 천사가 나타나서 예언을 합니다. 먼저 예언을 듣는 수치인의 이름을 이야기하게 돼요. 누구누구 당신은 몇 날 몇 시에 죽는다. 그리고 지옥에 간다. 그리고 그 시간이 되면 그 예언은 지옥의 사자들을 통해 이루어집니다.
And so on to Hellbound, the new Netflix series, which debuted just a couple of weeks ago, with 6 episodes. Nice bite size for binging on.
Yes,
a good old binge.
Very much.
Really, this has come at exactly the right time for this sort of thing. So, only a couple of episodes ago we were talking about Squid Game.
Yes.
And now we've got another Korean streaming series. And this one has, in some ways, it has an even better pedigree in that it's Yeon Sang-ho, who, of course, we all know from Train To Busan. And, of course, I think one of your favourite named films ever, at least for the US and the UK, where it was Train to Busan presents Peninsula.
I will never get over that. A train presenting a film. But although we'll have the Train to New York coming soon, and will we then get Train to New York presents the sequel Peninsula? I don't know.
So in that, would they end up in Florida Keys or something?
I don't know. I don't know where the train... They've not specified where the train's coming from. Oh, too many questions. But I'm sure that will be a future podcast anyway, man. And I'm open-minded about that remake, personally. So there you go.
So let's put a bit of context on this. So this is based on a animation that Yeon Sang-ho did way back early in his career, back in the early noughties. We might talk a bit more about this, but I mean, I have seen this. You can access some of the episodes online.
Oh, really?
There's a couple of episodes, and it is very much of the King of Pigs kind of darkness.
Okay.
And then what happened with it was, more recently, it's been adapted by a webtoon artist. And that's only a few years old, I believe.
Okay.
And the look of it is very different. So the look of the new webtoon they've done is much more Japanese manga, whereas the original animations were very much of like I said, very much of that sort of King of Pigs, very dark style.
Yeah.
The look of some of the creatures are quite different. This is having had a look at some of that webtoon, it's very, very almost scene for scene, panel for panel in terms of an adaptation.
That's interesting. Oh, okay. I didn't. I mean, I haven't seen the webtoon, and I didn't realize there was a new adaptation version of it and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see if they make that available to people. Following this, the mad success of this. Given that it's like a dethroned Squid Game and everything like that. So
because the webtoon has been started to be released with an English translation. I think that came out actually before the series started. I think you can get the US release of the.
Oh, that's quite cool.
I know it might be Dark Horse or off the top of my head I can't remember who it is, but it's one of those guys or Viz or one of those guys who puts out a lot of stuff. And with this show, I think they were expecting quite a lot from it, so we did get a preview of the first 3 episodes, which was at Toronto International Film Festival, and then we saw it at London Film Festival as well.
Big surprise, London following Toronto with programming. Never would have seen that coming.
And yeah, it's so far it's been very popular. We're seeing a lot of media coverage about it. I think you had some facts about the sort of the.
Oh yeah, I mean, going by our old friend the internet, over 43 million hours watched in the first days of release. Whether that compares with top the streaming ratings in more than 80 countries within 24 hours of its release. Take your pick. But either way, apparently it's had more, whatever Netflix calls it now, that it's not box office, because we still never know quite how many minutes it actually counts for review, and for series how many episodes you have to watch, which would be very interesting to know, especially for something like this when it breaks through into the mainstream, how much more mainstream viewers actually watch. But either way, yeah, very impressive stats, more than Squid Game, and I guess we'll talk a bit later how different it is to Squid Game or not different, and to what an extent this will be a continuing trend, or it's a very interesting time for this kind of thing. Let's
kind of go into a real brief synopsis, and I think we need to kind of head this off with the old-fashioned big spoiler warning.
Definitely.
There is if you haven't watched the series yet, I think we can recommend that you go off and you watch it, and then come back and listen to the show.
Yes.
In order to talk about this in detail, we can't help ourselves but actually kind of talk about what happens. And we are going to talk about, I think we'll probably end up talking about lots of bits right up to the very end. So yes,
definitely.
Go up, watch the whole thing, which is probably about 5 hours worth of telly, I believe. You kind of add it up.
Exactly. So you can just pause this here podcast, watch it, and come. We'll be waiting for them here.
We will be waiting for you. Yeah.
We might be more drunk if you go away for 5 hours, though.
Quite possibly.
But we'll still be here, man.
Might be snoozing in a corner. So, I mean, do you want to jump in on a quick synopsis of the plot?
Sure, man. Can do. It's very, very brief. So yeah, it just starts off with a bang, like with like mad supernatural beings and stuff like that beating people to death. But it's like supernatural beings which may or may not be aliens are starting to appear, or aliens. What could be? We don't know. Aliens,
we don't
angels,
know
anything.
What's going on.
Exactly. Appearing, like giving these mad prophecies to people, telling them that they're going to die and their soul's going to hell, and they're giving them a specific date and time and everything. Then a big gang of these sort of big, beefy black demon fellas like appear and just like literally just beat them to death and somehow incinerate them and stuff like that. And yeah, there's no explanation for it. And the fact that they're called angels or demons is more something which just comes from society, and people start going crazy trying to make sense of it all. And you get this mad new religious group or cult called the New Truth, led by this real weirdo fella called Jinsu, and he gradually, you see his influence growing through the series and everything, and then kind of as you said, like it's split into two halves, three episodes, and the first three follow this a detective, the sort of classic downbeat Korean detective who's a bit of a public enemy and everything, and he's got a lot of family tragedy and everything. He starts having to work with this female attorney after a woman who's been prophesized to die, and she agrees to the new truth to give her a lot of money for her kids to have her death televised, which sends a lot of shockwaves through people and everything. So you have that first half, and they kind of resolve that to an extent, and then suddenly it jumps forward 5 years for episode 4.
Yeah.
And now, like, the new truth is kind of in charge, or one of the main forces in society, and a lot of things have continued going with these kind of like angel visitations and the gang of demons beating people up. And we follow now a TV producer whose newborn baby gets sentenced to death, which is completely against the things you've learned in the first one, which is about sinners are prophesized to die. Whereas now we have a newborn baby who's sentenced to a demon bashing, and it kind of goes on from there and how that plays out with the new truth. And some people from the first part come back and everything, and it doesn't really come to a conclusion. as we'll talk about more. Sorry. And it doesn't really come to a proper end, as we'll talk about more later.
So let's start with some of this. This I think really does feel like, and I guess from those roots from coming from its early animations, it really does feel like you understand how piece of work.
Yes.
I think it's that mix of genres of horror, fantasy. Got this. It's particularly, I think, in the social commentary in this.
Yeah.
That brings it back into. I feel like the last film we saw that really was his true spirit, and for those regular listeners will know that we did a feature on Yeon Sang-ho.
Yes.
Last year to talk about James's favourite title film, and we did go into his work in greater detail. But this is much of the last one we saw that really felt like his kind of vision was Seoul Station.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Really kind of particularly unpleasant, and the zombies weren't the problem in that film by any means.
Yeah.
And we're actually, what is quite interesting, it is going back to that real dark feel about society, and it's not about religion so much as it's almost a kind of statement of mob mentality about almost kind of like a look at kind of people feeding off social networks in a sense. In the same way that people have said that Squid Game came along at a really appropriate time, this has come along at quite an appropriate time where we've seen people become quite fractured with, particularly with what's been going on in the world with the pandemic, about how people have become so indoctrinated into wanting to believe something that they actually lose any kind of sense, and they have their own morality, that they believe what they're doing is right, and anything they do to do that is right, even if that is violent and is killing people. There's a really interesting character who actually does branch both halves of this season, who is this shock jock. And they do quite. I like the way that's quite. There's a lot of fun in the way that character's done, because as he's ranting on and his online platform, you obviously got a YouTube channel. You get adverts start to appear at the bottom of the screen.
That's right. Yeah.
If you actually, these aren't translated in the version that I saw, but I think if you are Korean, you would actually pick up on some. I think they're probably like holiday lets and stuff like that. But
it's actually, as a quick side point on that, that's slightly. It's a difficult thing to do with subtitles, because it does pop up a bit in the one I saw, but you've got him ranting exactly at the same time as these things pop up. So it's not, you get these very quick flashes which are weird. It's like, is he saying that, or is that on the, or is that popping up there and stuff like that? So it's. So
I saw the first 3 episodes of the London Film Festival, and they didn't do that. But then that was at the same festival as The Medium, where they didn't subtitle the title cards. Something's
fair enough. Well. Yes.
But we've talked about subtitles, and of course that was very important with Squid Game, and the realities of trying to do that, and not lose people. But that's one of those things I think you can't do as a subtitle. But if you happen to know what that is, there's an extra laugh in there for people who that is their language.
Although that part of it is, and you're absolutely right. That I like the way it sort of moves into the second half, but the parts with that guy, his online video stuff, are the hardest parts to watch for some people, I guess, who are expecting something more normal, because he's just shrieking in this mad high pitch, and you've got all the fluorescent colors and whatnot.
Yeah,
it looks like almost like some outtakes from a Yeon film or something. It's just some guy screaming gibberish at the camera, jumping up and down in his chair and whatnot and everything. It takes and I think in general for the series, man, as you said, man, it's this mix of genres and stuff, but. It takes a while for it actually to become really cohesive, I think, for mainstream audiences. I think for people who have watched his other stuff, especially people who have watched all of his stuff, it does definitely fit very much into his kind of style. But especially coming off Squid Game, which is, for me, like quite unfocused, a bit incompetent, but essentially a very commercial offering. I think like this kind of mixture of stuff, and where it switches between like horror, fantasy, police procedural, law drama and stuff like that, is all packed into 6 episodes.
I mean, it is interesting. I think that we've got this thing that you are following these characters, and you think, oh well, okay, this is what we're getting. 6 episodes of this, and then quite a few of those characters just completely drop out of sight.
yeah, they do. Yeah, it's.
And then you pick up with a new story. I think I have to say I actually really liked it. I think for me, the second half of the series actually makes it a much more solid. If it had carried on in a somewhat similar tone, a similar style to the first part, it would end up being a bit repetitive, which I think you could say of something like Squid Game, where it doesn't feel like it's moving on very much and doing anything different. Whereas this, I think, we'll get onto this later on, but this really feels like, actually, well, if this is what he's done with this, if the next series goes, where's it going to go? What's going to happen?
Exactly, man. I have to 110% agree, man. It's that, and that shift like halfway through, after 3 episodes, is this sort of 2-act structure is something we're not really used to seeing, even just with Netflix series and stuff in general. But you're completely right. Like with Squid Game, that was one of the main problems I had. It was just you got the concept in episode 1 or 2, and it was just the same thing over and over again. Whereas this one, it's for better or worse, and for some people might be slightly thrown if they're expecting like the next Squid Game type thing, but. It's a much sounds pretentious, but a much richer experience, in that respect. And there is quite a lot of that sort of nice, his kind of randomness and everything in there. As you see, some characters dropping in, other ones suddenly come back in again, and everything. Which, and I agree completely. Like it's really cool having that first really sort of. It's almost like a condensed K-drama series into 3 episodes, or a condensed horror type thing into 3 episodes, and then suddenly onto something which follows on nicely, almost though. I mean,
I kind of guessed that it was going to, because of the way it had been, that those first 3 episodes have been structured, and quite often at film festivals, that sort of thing feels quite random. That you'll get the first 8 episodes or something, or the first 2, Sometimes you might see a preview that has episode 1 and episode 4.
That's true.
But this did feel actually like it was. Almost like it's actually kind of 2 films, 2 connected films, but more that than actually what you what you normally expect with a series, particularly perhaps more so with K-drama series, where it's the episode count outside of the Squid Games, the episode count can be astronomical,
relentless.
And they can and you just the same story could be going on and on and on. It was really, I mean, I as I said before, I think it really just actually makes the series very, very interesting.
No, I completely agree with you. And watching it on Netflix, I didn't see that sudden stop coming. We were, I was watching it with the other half, and we weren't sure. You can kind of tell by the end of episode 3 it's leading up to something, but then that episode just stops and the next one starts, and it's just like what? What's suddenly? But then, it has this quick maybe maybe a slight criticism, but maybe sort of too quick sort of wrap up of what's changed in 5 years and stuff. But I completely agree. I think these are the things, these kind of quite brave narrative choices and stuff, which sets it apart. I mean, it's almost like a better example if you put Train to Busan next to Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. You know, these the time difference, but and how different they actually are. Like, you know, zombie film Mad Max. You know, it's a much better version of that. The way this switches, because you know it is. You feel a bit not off-put at first, but you feel a bit disoriented at first. But it seems that that's all part of the narrative plan, and when they start bringing the threads in gradually later through that one, it's very well done. You know, especially for a Netflix series, when we are used to watching something which would have like a 10-episode or 8-episode arc. You know, you just know you'll get, you know, bits of setup for the next series, but essentially you'll finish an arc, whereas this doesn't really. You know, it kind of comes to a bit, but it just raises much more questions than it actually it doesn't really answer anything. But which is kind of, you know, as you said, like a lot of the, you know, the stuff with the demons, it's not so much necessarily about that element as much as it is about like the society, the mob mentality, everything like that. And watching it at this kind of COVID-y time is definitely a sort of very... It's hard not to read that kind of background context into, even though it wasn't his intention, having written it in 2002 and stuff. But, you know, he's done so much of this stuff where a virus, like a zombie thing or something, was the backdrop for social commentary. So it's definitely his bag, I guess. I mean, that side of it is handled very well, though. You know, the social commentary and the religious themes, everything. Even just calling these things like demonstrations, you know, where you get this... I don't know, it's so one of the funniest parts of it is the way the demons turn up and they run in, beat the fuck... They beat the fuck out of people, then they run off again. I don't know why...
Beat them up, they spike them...
Just why are they running, though? Yeah, that's probably...
They're always in a rush. They've got a lot of places to go.
Well, yeah, exactly, man. That's what I was going to say. Like, do they have like a schedule, and they're having to keep? Is this some sort of like, you know, the old White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland? He's got to always running, got to be somewhere, or is this just they don't want to stick around?
Much about, I mean, we know that there are in other places other than just Korea, but the way that we see it in the show is that they seem to be mainly bothering Korea for some reason. You know, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know, man. So many questions.
So many unanswered questions.
But the fact that they run and stuff is just quite funny. Everything, because, you know, it's...
Yeah, you wonder where it basically ends with them burning people up to literally to a crisp. Why do they bother beating the shit out of them? They take a lot of time doing it.
They pound the hell out of them, smashing them off whatever's nearby. If it's a wall, if it's a car, dragging their face along the ground for a spell, jumping up. They really get into it. But it's interesting that there is this complete void of not just explanation, but, you know, I don't know if personality is the right word, but there's nothing to them. And, you know, deliberately, it's not a criticism. It's just, it's almost like they've removed any kind of possible reference or context or anything to them, and they're just there as like a, you know, a sort of natural, supernatural, unnatural force or whatever. Which is, you know, I assume we'll get into it like later episodes of the series. But I don't know.
I mean, it's quite interesting to compare it with the original animation. So, actually, the beasts. The demons, whatever you want to call them, that appeared in there were much more like, you remember they're sort of somewhere between the dead guys in Fog who turn up with their bright eyes.
The lazy lepers.
And between them and the sort of, remember the animated version of Lord of the Rings from the late 70s?
Oh, well, what's his name? Ralph Bacall.
It was, wasn't it?
I'm not. I can't say it because I'm going back. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they're much more like that, and they just run around like mad, and they sound like hyenas, just kind of laughing, having a great time.
That's quite cool.
I think they just kind of eviscerate people. I don't think they actually kind of burn them up. And there are two stories, and I think there was sort of a couple of years between them, so the animation. So one is a guy who finds out they get the prophecy, and the angels in those do look like angels.
Oh, that's interesting.
A really disturbing scene, which is classic, of his animation of that time, where you've got this room full of these angels who look kind of a little bit more like kind of grey shadows, but with like classical angel kind of look. And they're just like a whole room for him with a couple of wings twitching around. That's actually cool. Visually, in some ways, I think it's a lot more interesting than. I mean, and that's one of the things that I'll come back to in a second. But visually, it's actually a bit more interesting than the sort of strange angel we have with the prophecy.
The angel's poor. I mean, that's one of the demons themselves, or whatever they are kind of funny. The way they just go in and beat people, but the angels, just like a blurred big face. It's more like some Ghostbusters type stuff, It was. It's not bad, but it just doesn't make anything of it.
I think that's one thing that this doesn't have, and was quite canny about Squid Game, is you've got all this visual iconography that we already seen has been picked up on. Just a few weeks on from Halloween. With kids walking around with Squid Game outfits.
Even here in Glasgow, man. I mean, Jesus, just...
it's crazy. That was quite a canny move. It's a bit of a sort of George Lucas merchandising move. And when we talked about that a couple of episodes ago, he was very obviously building on the influence of Japanese anime and manga. And that's worked out, which has worked out very well for him. In this, that's one thing we're not going to see. I don't think we're going to get too many squidgy toys of the demons.
Little stuff. If nothing else, they're fairly nondescript, I guess. There's not much to them, and I mean that's one. That's fair enough, one drawback,
which is quite interesting, and I do find that quite interesting that coming from that animator kind of point of view, and they do look like the like I said the adaptation that the manga artist has done. I forget the Korean name for it, but the webtoon the artist has done. They do look very much like that. They're very muscular and whatever, but they've lost something in the translation there. There was actually quite a lot more haunting in that kind of classic.
But I wonder how much of that is because it was a very quickly done production. I mean, it's been shot during these kind of COVID-y windows. I mean, and it's not a criticism at all. I think most of these kind of shooting and pivoting to shoot a series of any length, during, not even post-COVID times, ongoing Omicron time and everything, anything like, you maybe don't have as much time to spend on doing all that stuff, but it does look exactly the way it does in the webtoon. It's fair enough. Maybe there's a reason we'll get in the next series or something, but that was... I'm not going to say a weaker point and stuff like that, but more. I suppose if you had cooler demons or whatever, they would have drawn more attention to it, which is perhaps slightly less of the, less of the point. I mean, and it's obviously all the themes and stuff have obviously struck quite a point. I like the way that although you have like a sort of this sort of high premise stuff, like you're going to be told you're going to die in X number of days and stuff. It never really focuses that much. Even on that, it's not like a Ring thing. It's not like an M. Night Shyamalan type twist. So when we said twist, it's not even that we've talked about twist. We've just talked about this time jump and everything. And I really like that fact that there is, even when you see some of what I think are some of his lesser films, like that Psychokinesis, whatever it's called. Like he's clearly a guy who has lots of things in his head, man, and he's getting them all out there one way or the other. And I think with this, it's actually very well channeled and everything, but there's still so much stuff going on.
This
well, that's true, very true.
Yeah, platform for him to get a lot of stuff out and to play around with this idea in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas sometimes a film might just touch just a few elements, and I think we can come on to that as well. There are certain parts of this that are really undeveloped and quite interesting.
That's absolutely. There's a lot of that stuff in there.
But there is an opportunity here for him to go back and pick some of this stuff up. We don't know. There is this kind of recurring thing of these VIPs that come in to watch the demonstrations.
Yes. Oh my God! I did.
Which is very, very well. I mean, one would say it was very Squid Game, but there's obviously these same ideas coming on, and we've seen them in other things as well. I think definitely in the sort of death game ideas that there are lots of rich people who just want to watch this stuff happening.
Thankfully, it's not I did worry it was some mad Squid Game crossover, and so here's the VIPs turning up with their mad masks on and everything. And I thought we were that was a worried moment.
I mean, apart from being the allusion to that they fund the new truth, we don't know what they're getting out of it.
No, not exactly.
Versus what we know about the guys in Squid Game. And
it might be a subtitle. It might be a subtitle thing calling them VIPs as well. Whether on purpose or not, I don't know. But it might be just special guests or no idea. Because but as you say, that's one of these real mad throwaway parts, which is not really referenced beyond them turning up for that one part, and then it doesn't. It's not really in the second part of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do see them again.
It's kind of
the demonstration.
Yeah, it's more just a reference that they're looking a bit surprised, which, as you say, would suggest, are they funding it? They could so many questions, man. Which is,
and then we got this thing where if you commit suicide before they'll bring you back to life. Demons will bring you back to life and kill you and there's to be quite by the looks of the little throwaway scene we get. There's to be quite brutal even in the afterlife.
Even that's brilliant. It's just that is the most bizarre part of the entire 6 episodes. It's just suddenly that you see them pulling up like some mad ghost thing, like resurrecting and just beating the living, or the unliving fuck out of them, man. And it's just you would imagine that would have had a big shockwave across society or something, like you've been brought back from the dead. Because at the end of the day, as we said, like we don't know if these are demons, whatever. There is so for a rational anyone else person, there's no religious proof for any of that stuff. You can see why it happens, but there's somebody being brought back from the dead by what the demon. I think it was the Guardian referred to them as like a gang of demons who just go, a team of demons, which makes it sound like they're sitting down, they're getting their mad plays together. But a team of demons have actually just brought someone back to life, so they can beat the fuck out of them. That's genius, man. But that's like 2 seconds, 5 seconds, or something like that. So, and. Is this going to be going on in the net? I don't know. But it's very, and maybe that's kind of one of the hooks for this. On the one hand, we could reduce this to this high premise of like, Angel appears, he tells you you're going to die in X, and then these demons will appear and kill you. That's the kind of hook thing. But there's so much more insane questions surrounding pretty much everything, and kind of that almost becomes the for us, or maybe that's what becomes the hook now. It's like. Just there's so many ways this could go, so many questions, so many everything, which is good and also frustrating.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I do like it though. I mean, it really does feel like anything can happen in the next.
생일 축하합니다.
하율 반장.
축하합니다.
어머.
Should we very briefly chat a bit about the cast? Because I mean, again, it's got a solid cast. It has there's a lack of the random guest stars that we got in Squid Game.
Very true. That's definitely a benefit.
It is a benefit. I mean, for the first half, we've got Jiok, who is an old friend of Yeon.
Yes,
because he did voices for. Yeah, well, I mean, he did. Of course, Breathless, his own film that he starred and directed in from back in the day when Korean indies were proper Korean indies.
Terracotta had it over and everything. Good stuff.
But yeah, he was also the voice on a lot of Yeon's early animations, including Pigs and some of the other films as well. So it's quite, I guess it's quite nice for him to actually appear in his mate's films. And the cult leader in the first half is Yeon, who a lot of people probably still best know from Burning.
Oh, right. Okay, yes.
I think one of the most interesting characters, and she does span both series, is Kim Hyun-joo, who plays the lawyer. I like the way that her character changes in the second half, having not had a great time being a lawyer trying to protect people from the new truth.
Yes.
She turns into one hell of a badass.
Yeah,
in the second season.
And it's another part of that where it would be very interesting to know exactly what happened during that time jump in that kind of review, because you go from assuming she's dead to suddenly not just that she's back, but she's suddenly in charge of some counter new truth organization unit. Something.
I mean, it's a solid cast, isn't it? But
solid,
it's not
absolutely.
but perhaps not as
flashy.
Not as flashy, but I think in a good way.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're all people who've been in lots of television and lots of films. It's not, but they're not
distracting.
Not as distracting. Yeah, and definitely, back to Squid Game, some of that was a bit distracting for the sake of.
Completely agree, man. Completely agree, and this seems more committed to its themes and narrative than Squid Game does in that respect. Yeah. Whereas, as we talked about, and I'm sure everyone listening has already listened to our podcast about it, and go back and listen again by all means. But I think that was one of those problems with Squid Game, because whether or not the kind of narrative rhetoric that he'd taken so many years to get it made and got his famous mates, sort of involved in it and stuff like that for cameo appearances or anything. It would be like. If at the end of 7, instead of Kevin Spacey, it was like Bruce Willis turned out to be the killer or something like that. You know what I mean? It just seemed like not shock casting, but it didn't add anything at all. It was just distracting. Or like Saving Private Ryan with Ted Danson turning up. That kind of stuff. It was. I'm not a massive Squid Game fan, so there you go. But I agree with you. This is much more of an ensemble cast, and the way it's skipping between these different characters and between the with the 5 years and everything like that works very well, definitely.
So I guess the question is there going to be another series of this? What do we know about that so far?
Not much. A few different quotes in different places and stuff where he said they're definitely doing another webtoon, another follow-up, and then they'll discuss that with Netflix. So which is kind of annoying. Kind of a shame and stuff, because
there's a lot of momentum now behind this. Even if it wasn't being massively successful in terms of your investment, I think you get to the end of episode 6, and you're like, whoa, okay, I need to know what happens next.
Exactly.
Please give me some answers. I was like,
100%. Whereas at the end of like the Squid Game and stuff, which we keep coming back to, it finishes its arc. And not just because I wasn't crazy about it, but it's it's done. You could be like, it's done, it's fine. Or there can be another series, which it will be something the same but different or moving on or whatever. Whereas this one actually ends on a cliffhanger, a complete huge cliffhanger, which could potentially redefine literally everything which has gone before.
Yes,
with somebody coming back for the dead for why we don't know. So watching the end of this, I was just like. No, where's the next episode, man? I would like it now, and we don't even have it 100% confirmed. I'm sure it will happen. There's too much effort gone into the world building, the mythology, and everything to think that they don't, him and his partners don't have a plan for following up and everything. But I suppose on a plus side, if they're doing their webtoons and going that way first, that's it's great. They're obviously serious about it and developing. It's not going to be some cash in. Second series like Squid Game 2 definitely will be, but this will be
Squid Game 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Exactly, man, exactly. But this one, it just means we might have to wait quite a long time. Although he's not announced another film project, I don't think so.
It's interesting because he's been involved in. It's interesting how his star has risen, really, isn't it?
It is.
Involved in the TV series The Cursed. Which also had a film version.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
No, I haven't seen it either. And also, there are kind of various other projects that he's kind of connected to, including... when I was looking at this, reviewing Hellbound like a while back, there's actually even... looks like there's going to be a live-action version of King of Pigs.
What?
Of all things.
What?
Yeah. I don't even. Yeah.
Okay, well, you've just thrown that on me. I didn't know that. Don't know how to react.
This is not totally substantiated as kind of to sort of stuff that's in production, I think. But obviously he's not really connected to that more than being the original writer. I mean, it's an odd thing to do a live action.
It is.
I think there's a lot of power in what he was able to do as the animator.
Yeah, it's very,
as an animator.
Yeah, it's very sort of jagged.
And I mean, the legacy there, I think, is there's a big line now of what is quite brutal in the way that it's rendered in terms of Korean animation. It doesn't necessarily have that kind of anime kawaii kind of cuteness about it. There are, in terms of Korean animation, there is this kind of line of stuff. We've recently seen films like Climbing.
I'd like to see that.
That are very, they're not about looking pretty, and he is entirely responsible for that kind of aesthetic.
I can completely agree, man. And it's, I don't know.
It has broken away. I mean, obviously the Korean animation, outside of all the work that was done on Simpsons, etc., has its own. It is something quite different from Japanese animation. I think this line has definitely grown in terms of just this wonderfully kind of brutal.
No, absolutely. I would like to see Climbing a lot and everything, but with I don't know. I'm just annoyed that it might take them quite a long time to actually get to filming this, but we'll see.
And that's always the problem, isn't it? That kind of momentum, because you really want them to kind of.
But if he does the webtoon,
straight into it.
Netflix might just be like, okay, we can just Game of Thrones it, and we don't have the material, but we'll just do it anyway. for better or worse.
So then we get a couple of seasons of just filler, and then
massive battles,
and then it comes back, and then a really unsatisfying final season. Is that what you're asking from us, James?
I thought the end of Game of Thrones stuff was fine. Mostly watched it when I was drunk, but I've given up on it. As someone who'd read all the books and stuff, and knowing that George R. R. Martin is just lying when he says he's writing stuff, with this, like I imagine, no, it's a bit different, I guess, because like I think one thing you said before, like with if he's got some like webtoons and whatnot and everything, then you're almost like storyboarding a film or storyboarding a series. So somebody
really
has
I don't know if you've had a chance to look at, but
I haven't.
You can find some of it. It's on the.
Not some mad pirate site, hopefully.
No.
easternKicks can't support that.
No. It's on Naver, is it? The Korean social network. So you can actually look at, with the Korean language, you can actually see the first few issues, if you can talk about a webtoon in that kind of sense, on Naver, the Korean kind of social network kind of platform.
Okay. Yeah.
And as I said before, it is actually been released by Dark Horse, so with an English translation. So it really is. I mean, you talk about storyboarding, you really kind of scene for scene, panel for panel. So they've not gone very far away from that, apart from actually getting it acted out. But
that's quite cool though. So they would. So if they do the webtoon first, then at the same time they're essentially, hopefully, providing the basis for a very short jump into production for this, because fuck man, I want to know what happens next. I mean, that's no. I mean, I think we're all quite. I don't want not indoctrinated, but into watching these kind of like 10 episode or 8 episode Netflix things, and you can be quite comfortable where it comes to the end. Even if you know there's a next series, you finish an arc, whereas this one just finishes like, no, okay, well, where's the next episode? You bastards.
I mean, in some ways, we're back to the, dare I say it, sort of the Lost era of
I still never watched Lost,
which was highly disappointing where it ended up. I mean, there's always this thing with some of these TV series where you in the old days, perhaps more
the old days
pre-streaming, but eventually you'd be a bit scared to start it in case it, especially after Lost, when you got a lot of these TV series where they would deliberately baffle you for the first 3 or 4 seasons, and you knew how frustrating it would be. You just thought, okay, you know what? I'm not going to start watching this until I know at the very least they're getting a second season. Because once you start, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's just been cancelled.
But this, I think as well that we see, without going too much off topic, like so even with this now, it'll be interesting to see if these numbers are maintained for the viewership, because I've seen obviously like a lot of the coverage and stuff does mention that it actually just finishes on like a mad cliffhanger. And I think with this Netflixy kind of mentality, or even like with Dune recently, surprisingly that it wasn't looking like it was going to do fantastic at the box office. So suddenly announced, guess what? There will be a sequel. Don't worry, we're not just doing part 1 to be continued. So I'm surprised Netflix. We haven't heard that there's definitely a second series of Hellbound, given how successful it's been and how. Cliffhanger, and even for Squid Game, they announced there's a sequel, and they've already come out and said we've no idea what we're doing with the sequel. We are doing one, but which is fair enough. It's fair enough, man. It's not that they sat down and sketched out like a 3-series, 5-series plan, but it's strange that we haven't heard more confirmation about Hellbound, and I sincerely hope there will be one, and I sincerely hope we'll see it soon, but we probably won't.
So let's chat about some of the other. Where does this fit with all these other Netflix Korean series? Because it's going quite mental now with the amount of
it really is
series we have.
Yeah, man, it really is.
Aside from Squid Game, we've got Sweet Home.
Yes, which I've almost finished. I'm on the second last episode. I have to say I'm really. If I was going to start ranking them. Not if I'm going to. I am about to rank them. Actually,
you are literally
sorry,
going to do
that was a very pointless comment. Number 1, Hellbound. Actually, by far, I think Hellbound is by far the best of them.
Yeah.
Sweet Home second, Squid Game third. I mean, Sweet Home is, and I will say another thing. Like Sweet Home, the subtitles are terrible.
Where's Kingdom in that?
Oh man, I forgot. Don't mind.
Ruin your ranking.
Second. I'm still putting Hellbound number 1, just because of the team of demons sitting there having a drink first, and then deciding who to get.
They're a team. They're not a gang of demons. They're a team of demons. Oh, what should we do now, Jeff?
Well, it's the same as like.
Oh, well, hang on, mate. We've got somewhere to be in the next 30 seconds. All right, let's go.
Exactly. It's because they do seem like construction workers or something. They're just running in like blah blah blah.
Steve. Get out of there! We can't go!
It's one of those things like I heard recently from some of my rap listenings and stuff, like and the old Dre and Snoop stuff, they would refer to like drinking gin as you'd have like a gang of Tanqueray. Which I don't know, for some reason I know it's going to be obsessively stuck in my head now. Let's have a gang of Tanqueray, man. But yeah, with Sweet Home the subtitles are terrible. I mean, really? They're just grammatically terrible. They're just not right or anything. So I don't think it changes the meaning, but it's much more what I would assume to be like a webtoon thing. It's completely, it's... Well,
because the interesting thing about this, other than Squid Game, that we know is based on... the director has been influenced by anime and manga.
No, I think you're right to say...
Home,
I think, you're right. Based on, I think it's that
based
close.
On, yes. But Sweet Home is based on a webtoon. Kingdom is based on a webtoon.
Yes, that's right.
They're all coming out of this. Quite a lot of these films, these series are coming out of this. The space. That's
true. Yeah, very true.
Korean.
But
comic book space.
But Sweet Home it's so. I think the other reason I like Sweet Home is it's very, very different to them. It's everything is very, very random and it's very clumsily plotted and. It's like an apartment building and some weird curse has struck Korea. I mean, the same as like Hellbound. Is it just Korea, the rest of the world? Vague hints. But people are turning into monsters. And then like all kinds of wacky monsters and attacking people. But for some reason, some people who look like they're from a boy band who can maybe survive the monsterization and help people with their monster skills and stuff. But it's incredibly gory and violent. And it's just packed with sort of like Korean rock music and stuff. And it's the same song every episode whenever people start fighting, which is now completely fucking stuck in my head, man. But it's so completely unpretentious and fun, and it's not even like a proper horror thing because it does blend you have a couple of like young kid characters. Not a spoiler, they cry the entire time, and when they cry,
no more crying.
No, but when they cry, it starts the older people from crying. Like, and then quite often a monster walks in. A monster just walks in and like bang, kills them.
Even though we did have that terrible scene in Train to Busan, there is a lack of
true. Very true, very true, man. It's massive plus points, especially compared to the travesty of Squid Game with your man every single episode at the end crying on his knees, begging the guards, please don't let this person die. Like, you're in a death game, mate. Boom, idiocy. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, going off on a tangent, but I thought Sweet Home was very good. I haven't seen the last episode yet, so we'll see. But yeah, I think we've seen, we've said before, we've seen this initial huge figures for Hellbound and how that translates into something which is immediately commodifiable in the same way Squid Game is, like you said, with the masks, which is not.
There's a question: how more of these are we going to see? But we already know that we've got one on Christmas Eve, haven't we? We've been doing it once again.
The Silent Sea, aka probably Event Horizon without Sam Neill, but
which is a travesty in itself.
A great travesty in itself. I mean, you could maybe have Hugo Weaving, I suppose, but Matt Berry at a push.
Well, I mean, yeah, Hugo Weaving is Baiduna's co-star.
Exactly, especially when he's in drag playing a massive Scottish woman like he does in Cloud Atlas. So if he makes an appearance, then the Silent Sea, already a classic. If he turns up in his
It looks interesting, but it does look like we're going to get. It almost seems like we're going to get at least one of these a month, and sort of fantasy horror.
Yeah, but I
from Korea.
I think what's kind of interesting. I mean, how it's happened. I don't have an answer to this, but I've said probably many times in these podcasts and stuff, I have no interest in K-drama. 26 episode. I don't know. That's what I'm just assuming from like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer context. 26 episode, 52 episode things where it's just basically people crying and guys wearing makeup and stuff. It's just. But now,
Sissy boys.
Oh, of course, a sissy man, as Winnie the Pooh would say. But you know what I mean. Like we're going to watch My Name. The assassinate one as well. So because these ones are, we're getting to, and it sounds weird because I don't want to overly praise Netflix, even though we keep doing a lot when we have all these picks. But they're investing in this stuff, but still letting them stay Korean. But at the same time, then taking that Koreanness and fitting it into a more palatable 10-episode model.
Or even under 10 episodes.
Or even under. I think,
it is interesting because even a lot of American seasons, we don't get the sort of 24, 26 episode kind of thing that we used to have, but they tend to be towards the 12, 13 episodes that we used to. But actually, now we are seeing more of the kind of classic British sort of 6 to 8 episode kind
very solid, very traditional step up.
But the reason that works is because it stops. You don't get those episodes where you just think, well, what's the point of that? It's just there's literally a filler episode, and there's another one.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I agree, and it's. I don't know. I'm still never going to invest like a massive amount of time, but. I say that, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to Silent Sea and stuff as well. And I'm probably going to watch My Name.
I'm definitely going to watch Baekduna, and I mean anything she's in is worth watching.
And I love things where something goes wrong in space. It's a classic genre, man. So I'm there, but I just find it slightly weird that it seems like we're getting pulled into. We just need a new name. We're not getting pulled into K-drama. We're watching something that makes us not sound like we're K-pop fans of like sissy man and stuff. I'll tell you. I tell you what. I guarantee every time I watch one of these, I'll have a whole bottle of liquor per episode.
So Hellbound is available to stream now on Netflix, and the much hotly anticipated The Silent Sea will, as we said, be screening from the 24th of December on that same streaming platform.
Christmas Eve. Give us money, Netflix.
Yes.
We just keep it's their fault for giving us good product, but they still owe us something.
I reckon so.
너희는 더 정의로워야 한다. 사람들을 죄에서부터 해방시킬 거야.
Hello, this is Mausan. I'm the director of Many Have Fallen. I'm the filmmaker from Myanmar, and I'm now listening to easternKicks.
And now we come to easternKicks picks. What have you got for us this time, James?
Oh man, I got so much stuff coming up because it's I guess the winter nights are drawn in and everything. So I will say at the start first, just as an angry disclaimer, I've given up on Amazon for doing this because it's just impossible to find anything on there.
And whether it'll still be there by the time we actually come to record the program,
or whether it's just some dodgy copy. So anyway, Amazon could buy.
Exactly.
So starting, getting straight back into buying drinks for Netflix. Yeah, of course. Aside from Hellbound, another major thing we've had recently turning up has been Cowboy Bebop with the much talked about. I mean, the anime is all on there as now, the live action. I will say I haven't watched the anime. I don't know much about it.
So what brings you back from the dead?
A week ago, I did a job. A bounty. I had a partner, believe it or not.
He know what you used to be? Will I ever see you again?
They tried to kill me, Anna. If you need to find me, I go by Spike Spiegel these days.
It's one of the very few times where I've given up on a series after a couple of episodes, just lifeless. And, there was just...
That's not that good. And it's got old John Cho.
Yeah. And he just seems... I don't. It's hard for me to say miscast.
There was a lot of anticipation. I mean, I think we're both of the same kind of thing. For us, we were just outside of the right time, either a little bit too old, a little bit too young to actually, maybe not.
We're just not
at that point massively involved in the sort of anime side of things to get into Cowboy Bebop. But it's a very, very the original anime is a much loved series.
Absolutely, absolutely. Man.
Really, they absolutely love it. And so there was a lot of anticipation with this series, and it does seem
it's
to
just push.
utterly bombed.
It's just boring. I mean, I don't even have much else to say about it. It's just it's weird not to feel like even like the first two episodes are boring. Maybe it'll pick up, but I just don't see the point. And it feels miscast. It feels cheap. It feels just wrong. I don't know, man. I'm just saying I'm not going to go back to it, but it was, poor, very poor, man. I have to say. But there's plenty of other stuff on there. So there's this new Filipino comedy which I'm going to check out. The reviews are not good. Called Isla, which also goes by Only. Seems to be like a bunch of vloggers in a tropical island and zombies attack them, and it's less than 85 minutes. Which is
you don't feel like you've wasted your life watching something.
No, exactly. So I'll watch that and watch this space for review on the kicks and everything. Warriors of Heaven Earth, a very bizarre edition of a 2003 Chinese film from a sort of award-winning, I forget if he's 5th or 6th generation director, He Ping. But he did like a lot of these Chinese westerns and stuff. Swordsman and Double Flag Town, which
I've got on Laserdisc. Yeah,
it's good actually. He does some pretty good stuff, and it's got your man Jang Won in it and stuff. But
and I remember, I mean, this is one of the films that hovered up after Hero. And
exactly,
Flying Daggers, isn't it? And then it's kind of, I think, perhaps a bit unfairly kind of disappeared as a lot of the other stuff did. In that time.
I mean, I remember it being bland, but I might check it. No, I'm lying. I'm not going to check it out again. I remember it being bland. It's not bad, but it's bland. And although it was shot in Xinjiang province, which even saying that probably on this podcast is a trigger for something, but but it was one of those sort of co-production-y type things with like Columbia. in Sony.
Which again there was quite a lot around the early noughties, wasn't there? There's a real,
which has gone nowhere because of certain things in China. So I don't know. If you haven't seen it, it's probably worth checking out. Asuka's Kid, which completely caught me by surprise landing on there. So I'd heard there was a film about based on Kitano, Takeshi Kitano's autobiographical novel. Funny, it's kind of following him as a young comedian while he's apprenticed to some famous other comedian. He becomes more famous as his master declines and everything.
Yeah.
So I heard it was pretty good, but it's still the trailer. It looks pretty TV movie of the week type, to be honest. But it's a Netflix production.
Which is actually,
again, you know?
It's not unusual for some of the sort of Netflix productions. Not unusual for a lot of a certain line of Japanese film as well. But it doesn't.
I know what you mean. The Netflix Japan stuff I've seen hasn't engaged as much to the same degree as like the Korean stuff we're talking about in terms of like international appeal or kind of like bombast, if that's the word, you know. So it looks okay. It's over 2 hours, so I might or might not check it. But I don't know. I wasn't aware before that, you know, the early years of Kitano's life were massively interesting. So the rise and fall of a young.
He was massively popular as a comedian. I mean, that's
he was, but this is him even before that. From what I think, I think this is him as a very young man, as like an apprentice to a comedian and stuff. So
that's true. Yeah.
It's probably worth it, but we'll see. What else do we have? Oh, The Whole Truth, a Thai horror film, which I am actually going to check out, even though it's over 2 hours. It sounds not massively interesting, but some kids who find like, you know, a hole in the wall of their grandparents' house and find out secrets. But it's just the guy who did Tears of the Black Tiger. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Sansantien, but. That was such
and some other stuff as well.
Citizen Dog,
which I really enjoyed.
Great film,
just kind of disappeared, didn't it? It just massively. It was on at London, something like the London Film Festival.
Yeah, but they were so, you know what I mean, distinctive films and everything. I can't believe that this would just be a complete nothing affair. It just seems a bit long, but I'm definitely going to check it out. Then we have some stuff from Japan. More we have like We Couldn't Become Adults, which is. You know, for some reason it's been getting quite a lot of profile and some good reviews, but 40-something recalls his past relationships from the 90s onwards, looking for vanished hopes and dreams. But apparently it is a lot better than the synopsis suggests. It's over 2 hours. I don't know, I might not check it out, but it's... I don't know, I'm sure someone else will review it for the kicks, but I don't know. Good, like I say, good reviews, and it's nice to see that kind of thing appearing, at least online, giving a sort of bit of, you know, variety to what seems like a more sort of indie Japanese drama type film, I guess. Probably the nicest thing I can say about it. And then we have The Fable, The Killer Who Doesn't Kill, which I haven't seen, but a lot of people seem to be quite happy with those films. Some hitman
absolutely.
Doesn't kill people, but still is somehow a hitman and gets into scrapes and ends up protecting people. Yeah,
they're very popular. They're very popular, those films, and people do like them. So I mean, it's interesting they're both debuted on Netflix now.
Absolutely. Nice to see it kind of appearing on there. Onto Shudder, the horror platform, and Park Chan-wook's Thirst has finally appeared, which is actually one of my favourite of his films. Very good, and it's just one of these sort of weird, funny things from Shudder. They've also added the 1979 Australian film of the same name. On the same day at the same time, which is also like it
always sounds like they've had a mistake and they thought they're getting one film and then they.
I think they just have
another.
I think they've got a programmer just taking the piss or something.
Yeah.
It's just like Thirst. Okay,
it's confused
what
people
else can I get? Thirst.
Yes.
We'll get two of them, put them next to each other. But they're both really good films. The Australian one's great as well. We have Prisoners of the Ghostland, which we could have or probably shouldn't spend a whole episode on. The Sion Sono one with Nicolas Cage. I really liked it still, but it's just I don't think it's going to give people what they want. It's very much, you know, Sion Sono kind of art house weird craziness. Make no sense. Very, very theatrical, very stagey. Some violence, not much. Nicolas Cage going crazy, but not like Mandy crazy or anything. So it's good. No, I liked it, but it's being pushed so much as with this quote from Nicolas Cage in the wildest film I've ever done. It's like, okay, wildest film you can probably remember doing, and your short-term memory is maybe not that great. It's good, and he is very good in it. It's funny, but it is very much a later term Sion Sono film. So it's more art house than anything else. So if you take the concept for Tag and like all these schoolgirls dying and stuff, disguises the fact that it's a really episodic art house meandering film, and so is this. I liked it. I think it's great that it's getting wider exposure, but I think the exposure it's getting is a bit of a cash. We're still seeing this post-Mandy wave for Nicolas Cage and everything. This whole sort of post-Mandy wave, Cage wave, which is great because he is genuinely still like a mad talented actor who can, you know, go from 0 to 60 depending on what he does. But I think he's great. I just don't think it's the film a lot of people might be expecting or looking for better or worse. And then we have Dead and Beautiful, which I think people can just refer to my review on Eastern Kicks for 1 star. With super rich, spoiled, boring, annoying kids become vampires and become not better people. It'd be like watching Boris Johnson become a vampire and still being Boris Johnson, basically. But even worse if he did it to like a lot of music video scenes of him dancing slow motion in nightclubs. So, exactly.
I'm sorry, I've just been a bit sick in my mouth.
Oh, I've just been a lot sick in my mouth. or Michael Gove up in Aberdeen, like dancing in a nightclub. Basically, it's like that. Anyways, terrible film. Read my review. I've saved you from watching it, hopefully. And then the last thing to mention, I guess, is just the interesting fact that old Parasite is turned up on Channel 4. You know?
On terrestrial television, you can call it that now. 10 p.m. So, you know, before midnight. I mean, this is unheard of for most foreign language film, let alone Asian.
True. And most of our listeners will probably be like, what is this terrestrial? 10 p.m.? What does it mean? What? Is it available from 10 p.m.? Is it stopped being available at 10 p.m.? But I agree, man. It is, you know, for all my not being a massive fan of Parasite, it's great to see that. And having seen that, I sort of delved in and saw the BBC iPlayer has the Spy Gone North and the Gangster, the Cop,
the Devil.
Which
have both been on for at least a year now.
Really?
Been on iPlayer. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we've seen the sort of stuff from, you know, and that was before. Both were before Parasite, really.
Yeah, that's true then. Yeah.
There is this kind of investment to get this stuff on, and, you know, obviously pay enough that it will be on iPlayer for a long time as well.
I mean, I'd love to see the kind of viewing stats behind these things. I mean, the same as I said before, like the Netflix viewing stats for how, you know, if somebody, we're saying like however millions watched Squid Game and Hellbound and stuff. How much of that is they watched the first 2 minutes? Did they watch 1 episode, 2 episodes? How much? Yeah, I'd be fascinated to see that stuff.
So that's it for now. Don't forget you can find all of our previous episodes on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and you'll never miss an episode. But for now, cheers.
Here's to you.